This is the only U.S. Forest Service seaplane base in the United States. When I would talk to a number of pilots at the various aviation shows at the SPA booth, I was surprised to learn how many people did not know of the existence of this operation. Very unique place. I came across it back in the 70s, just before we started the Seaplane Association, when I bought my first used 172 from a person called Pat McGee at Sandy Harbor, I think it was called, Seaplane Base, located about 1 mile from the U.S. Forest Service operation. When I became aware of the facility, I decided at some point I had to go back and do some kind of video to let the pilots and the world know about this very unique operation.
This tube is attached to the deep part of the right float at the step section. And the hydrodynamic force when we land at 55 miles an hour drives the water up the tube, fills the tank in 6 to 8 seconds. Very primitive, but effective.
This hooks onto the float, you say?
Yeah, there's a little bracket on the chine on the right-hand float.
And is there a pipe that I don't see here now that goes into it?
This goes right in the top of the tank.
Oh.
When the tank is full, it gushes out of the top, and we see it in this mirror in our peripheral vision.
And how long does it take? How many seconds on the water before you fill it?
6 to 8 seconds is all it takes. On glassy water, there's so much drag from that little pipe that if you flop on, it'll actually pull you sideways. Now the mechanism is a simple over-center device with a handle. So that locks the doors. You scoop, you fly over the fire, make a bombing run, and drop it. It's about 1,000 pounds of water.
And what do you feel as you're flying when you drop the water?
Well, you've just gone from heavy to empty.
Yeah.
On top of that, you get the thermal action from the fire as you fly over, which wants to give you a little boost as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll set you in your seat. We get thrashed around a lot. We use 4-point harnesses, and you can get beat up a little bit on a big fire. But our turnaround time, we have so many lakes in this area, our turnaround time, 2.5 to 3 minutes.
Well, how do you know how low you can get over a fire?
You don't hit things.
You don't hit things, huh? So you can't drop from 10,000 feet.
Right. With 125 gallons, the idea is to get pretty close to the canopy.
Right.
You don't. If you're dropping from 200 feet high, it's going to be evaporated by the time it gets there. This system works really well on grass fires. When you drop in ice water in the spring, you can string it out over a grass fire, and it just lays it right down. You just moisten the grass out in front of it, and it stops. When you get into heavy fuels, all we're doing is trying to slow it up to give us time.
Right.
Sometimes we will build a little bit of a wet line along a portage between lakes so they can burn off from that to back burn on a fire. Being that it's a wilderness area and a roadless area, we don't have the advantage of tracked vehicles or bulldozers or anything out there to help us. So a lot of it is either by hand or by aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually, this fire is a lot of why we're here, but it's a small percentage of our actual flying. We do our own detection, and granted this airplane is large for a detection airplane. It could be done with a Hawk or a Cub. But the trick is, we're trained in fire, and we have an air attack platform, radio package, and we'll go out and do detection, and if we find something, the trick is to find it small and keep it small, rather than finding it small and waiting for 45 minutes for a firefighting airplane to show up, and meanwhile it gets big.
Yeah.
So the trick is we will put the tube on and start dropping water on it to try to slow it up while we bring in 3-man fire squads. We typically carry 3 people, pumps, hose, chainsaw, gasoline in the floats, overnight gear, and a canoe strapped on the side. And that's our initial attack fire squad.
Well, during the season, do you fly every day?
Pretty much. We'll have rainy spells where it slows down, but when we're not doing fire, we're putting antennas out here on the wing struts and doing telemetry, wildlife telemetry on wolves, lynx, moose, and deer.
Oh man.
We're putting a fish stocking hopper inside, and we're stocking trout species in remote lakes for the DNR. We can put a crop dusting hopper in and seed trees to burn over or clear cut areas. We do all the medevacs, search and rescues, and body hauls for the area. And on a busy summer, we might do 20 medevacs.
Now, can you reconfigure this to?
Oh yeah, the military style seats.
Oh wow.
That we put in here.
Look at that.
We go from passenger to cargo just that quick.
Yeah.
And we can put a litter in the
Yep.
back. We can put this seat behind that seat. That way, an EMT, the other person in the canoe party, and a sheriff's deputy. The county is actually responsible for medevacs, so the county is in charge of the flight. So we'll have a deputy and an EMT. They'll sit on that side of the airplane, and we'll put the litter on this side, or vice versa. Doesn't matter. But we can pull all the seats out and load the airplane up and throw a cargo net over it and haul
There you go.
whatever. Almost a ton of fire line explosive, whatever.
Ton, really?
Yeah. Yeah, they have a good useful load for a little airplane.
I'd say so.
Yeah. And part of that is we do have a gross weight increase. It's we've copied a lot of turbo beaver parts. We have turbo beaver wing struts, attach points, the little moose horns out on the flow generators out on the ailerons are part of the turbo beaver installation. The turbo beaver can fly 500 pounds or 1,000 pounds heavier than a piston beaver, and we've got a gross weight increase to get half of that. So we're 500 pounds heavier than a standard beaver.
I notice you don't have VGs on your.
No, that's the same idea. It keeps flow going over the ailerons during slow flight. It's a very good slow flight wing to begin with. And then we've added things like the little fins on the tail for better longitudinal stability. We've added a better water rudder steerage system, larger windows in the back, skylight windows in the front, because we spend a lot of our time in turns when we're orbiting fires, when we'll daisy chain on fires, dropping water. And we're in the turn a lot. When we're doing telemetry, we're in a turn all the time. And that the skylight windows are a good addition for that. You know, better step systems.
Who's done these modifications?
We have right here in house.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, these airplanes were right out of the box, brand new from de Havilland, without all of those things.
Are they still making the beaver?
No, the Beaver hasn't been built in a lot of years. They threatened to put it back in production, and they have put the Twin Otter back in production.
That's what I heard.
But the Beaver hasn't been in production for years. 62 might have been through that era somewhere is where they quit building piston beavers, and they built a string of turbo beavers into the mid-60s, I believe.
Is there a Twin Otter available yet? Is there?
I believe so.
Okay.
But we've got an immoral amount of radio gear for an old farm truck. We've got a pair of FM radios for talking to other firefighting aircraft and to talk to the firefighters.
Can I step up there?
Sure, jump in.
I thought I heard Dean say they could fit all 3 beavers in this hangar area. In a few seconds, we'll take a tour of what goes on inside here and in the shop and the operations office.
Is initial attack cart, and there'll be pumps. The red packs are hose. The big blue packs on top of the cabinets are overnight gear. Chainsaws, gasoline, and keep half a dozen canoes out here to this side. Bring all of our landing gear ended up in Grand Rapids, where they have a co-located runway and pond, so we can swap over for the ice is. But we do put 2 of these things on skis in the wintertime, and they'll fit in your tail to nose and we'll roll out of the hangar, get on the ice, and these are hydraulically actuated to where we have a selector and a hand pump inside the airplane, and we'll just select skis down and pump at 35 strokes, and you get skis or tires, whichever you want. So this runs off an axle on the landing gear opposite the tire. The tire will go here, and this is another axle. And it's got shock absorbers. They're an adequate ski. These are built by to have them. So we have 2 sets of these. In the wintertime, we do a weekly trip out to Isle Royale National Park, resupplying their winter studies people. And we'll do moose census up in Voyageurs National Park or here on our forest. And we do law enforcement. We might fly border patrol occasionally. But we're looking for illegal motor use in the boundary waters. We get very few medevacs or searches in the wintertime, but we're available for that. Most of our flying in the wintertime is actually telemetry for fish and wildlife. We'll put the antennas on the wing struts and go out and look for them. And the skis in that point are a safety issue when you're out over that much country. Every lake becomes an airport again.
Right.
So it's a very safe operation. The airplanes were used in the military, so we have a lot of military excess property parts. You can see spares hanging all over, and we've got upstairs we have a cache of the parts. Yeah, let's go through the back shop first here. In the wintertime, we try not to heat this big hangar.
There's a lot of volume.
Yeah, we'll heat it just during annuals. We'll bring components through the garage door and bring components into here, like we can fit a float or a wing or a tail surface in here and work on it. So we can, do it. We have a sheet metal cart. We have a lot of spare parts.
Mm-hmm.
We try to keep one engine built up on a QEC stand. So this is firewall forward, built up for our application. We'll send the motors out to be overhauled and then get all new rings and bearings. And get fixed up, but then we have to set up the accessories in the motor mount and the dish pan to fit the beaver application. And then so this 2 people, 2 mechanics will hang one of these things in about a day and a half.
Really?
If we were to have a problem, if it's all built up and ready to go.
Yeah.
So we try to keep that going. But if we needed, we've acquired excess property engines through the years. We've got a spare propeller. We've got a spare, out in the shack to the back, we've got a spare set of wings and a spare fuselage.
My goodness.
They haven't been overhauled, but they're out there and ready.
Yeah.
We do have a serviceable spare set of floats. So for a small outfit, we've got a lot of spares. And it was because the military got out of the beaver program and we acquired a bunch of this stuff in past years. If we were to have a project fire, a search and rescue going on, something like that, we come in here and spread the maps out.
Yeah.
Do our briefings here. It's one of our first local guys, Hoot Howdala, and Curtis Robin. Hey, you're out for a fire patrol there?
Is he going to fire up outside there? I'll go outside for a minute then.
We've used airplanes on the Superior National Forest since 1929, and this may have been one of our first contracted airplanes. Then in 1938, we realized the need, and the Superior National Forest bought their own Stinson SR-6. Merle Maltrup was our first seasonal pilot, and Milt Nelson was our first full-time pilot. going to have to do a run up, so that'll take a little time. We'll get a little closer. But with a fresh breeze and being this cold, he won't take long to get out once he gives it to it.
Where's he headed? Where's he headed?
They're doing a fire patrol. They had lightning out on the east end of our forest, so he's going to do a lightning patrol. Sometimes it'll come up as much as a week.
Really? Wow. It's not quick.
You put another ton in it, it doesn't quite. But it really, it's amazing how well it does get out. Oh, he's going to give you a little photo shot. Too bad he didn't have the tube on. He could have picked up a load of water and dropped it.
Oh, yeah.
It's cold. Today, but really cold.
Welcome. So glad you could join us, Dean. Thank you very much. Tell me, is the Forest Service Seaplane Base here, is this the only one in the country?
We're the only seaplane base. We do have one other float plane located in Juneau, Alaska for the law enforcement agency up there.
And what's unique about Ely? Why Ely for your seaplane base?
Ely's in the middle of the Superior National Forest, which has a huge roadless area, the Boundary Waters canoe area. And Ely, the seaplanes here at Ely are owned by the Superior National Forest, and it's centrally located within the forest.
And tell me about your fleet. How many airplanes do you have? And we saw some gorgeous beavers out here. And is this your fleet of 3 beavers?
You're looking at it, yeah, 3 de Havilland Beavers, ranging in vintage from 1956 to 1959. They've been here pretty much in this area for their whole life, working for the Superior National Forest.
And how do we get a job like yours?
You have to wait for somebody to die or retire. There are scratch marks on the doorposts here where we tried to kick pilots out. Nobody wants to leave.
They've got their fingerprints, their
Right.
claw marks all the way out the door.
Yeah, it's a great job. A lot of variety, and it's a rewarding, interesting job.
And what kind of missions do you have? What are your airplanes used for?
We're funded for fire, and we have a fire tank underneath that was designed and built, engineered right here in Ely at the hangar. We can scoop water off the lakes and drop it on fires. And we have so many lakes in this area that a 3-minute turnaround time is kind of typical. We also haul 3-man fire squads. They're hose, pumps, chainsaws, gasoline, overnight kits, and a canoe strapped on the side to insert fire squads into remote fires.
Well, we're all used to seeing, you think of firefighters, the big, huge tankers. How does your operation differ from that?
Our idea is to catch them small and keep them small. We do our own detection. We'll find a fire, recon it, and if they want us to fight it, sometimes we let them go. If they want us to fight it, we may put the tube on and start dropping water, try to hold the fire, while another beaver will bring in fire squads. And then if the fire gets out of control, we'll bring in larger equipment.
You talked about firefighting, but you said there are other missions as well?
Oh, a number, yeah. We have about a dozen different missions. We provide the search and rescue, medevacs, and body hauls for the Boundary Waters. We do a lot of wildlife surveys. Summer and winter, we have radio telemetry for fish and wildlife, radio-collared wolves, lynx, moose, and deer.
Wow.
We stock fish for the DNR in remote lakes. We have a tree seeding hopper so we can seed trees, mostly for erosion control, over burn over and clear cut areas. So there's a lot of variety. We do a lot of wildlife census and that sort of thing as well.
We have so many applications. It's just amazing to me that there aren't more seaplane-based operations for the Forest Service.
This is a unique operation here in the landscape is what makes it. We're probably as much water as we are land, and it's roadless. A lot of these missions, other places might be done by a helicopter, might be done from the road, but we can do them because we're roadless and we have so much water. The float plane is just a natural thing.
Yes.
And our motto here is we're cheap and easy. Because we've been here for so long, we bought our first float plane brand new from de Havilland in 1956 for $45,000. You know, so
45 grand for a brand new Beaver.
brand new Beaver on floats. So you couple that with the excess property spares that we've gotten off the military to keep them running, and this has been a very economical airplane for us to operate.
We've got, as you know, thousands of members all over North America. Should I tell my membership this is a great place to come visit with your seaplane?
Unfortunately, there's a big restricted area or prohibited area over the boundary waters, which extends up to 4,000 foot MSL. And unfortunately, this area was shut off to float planes. And it's part of the boundary waters wilderness area. It's unfortunate, but we're only allowed in ourselves for emergency purposes like fire or medevac.
But that's incredible. So you can't go out just to fly around yourself and see a pretty spot to throw a fishing pole in?
Oh, we'd love to. Yeah. No, unfortunately, we're limited by the same laws, and although the Superior National Forest is the controlling agency for the airspace, they regulate us, you know, the same way that excuse me, that anybody else would.
Now, what's your background, Lee? Where did you come before you were stationed here?
I'm from Maine originally, a Maniac, and I've worked different places: Southeast Alaska, Louisiana in the oil field. I flew one summer out of New York City, out of the East River.
No kidding.
That sort of stuff, you know. Just yeah, we bounced around the country a bit, but we came here because of the benefits, the retirement that you wouldn't get from a little mom and pop seaplane outfit, and it was a 20-year retirement deal, so it was a very good deal to move here with a young family.
Is that pretty typical of the pilots you hire? Is your background typical of?
I think all four of us that are in the shop now have served a stint in Alaska. We've all got that sort of variety of background. A couple of the guys have got more commuter and airline type background, and they came back to the good life of the fleet of the seaplane. But yeah, we're all sort of our second career. We all came here with a lot of time.
You had a beautiful hangar out there. It looks like you could eat off the floor. And I saw some packs that were already made up. What were those for?
We keep a fire cache here so people can come in, grab firefighting gear and overnight gear, strap a canoe on the side of the airplane to go into initial attack, small fires, lightning strikes, campfires that get away, that sort of thing.
And I understand you do some border patrol as well.
We do a little law enforcement for the Forest Service. There is a no motor zone north of us along the boundary between us and Canada, and we do cooperative agency stuff between us and the Park Service, and we have flown the Border Patrol before.
What else can you tell our membership about your job, about this operation?
It's rewarding in the respects that some of my best flights have been search and rescues, where you find some lost child before dark, or you bring in somebody that may have had a fatal illness if you didn't get them back in time.
Absolutely.
Stopping a fire before it takes somebody's house. So there's a lot of rewarding parts to this job versus someone that does scenic rides every day. You know, which I used to do. You know, this has more facets to it. Very interesting.
You say that the area is basically closed off to seaplanes in the U.S. forest area. The lakes and so forth are not open to seaplane access. But if someone is transiting this area, coming in from Canada or going to Canada, is there a place they can land?
Sure. There are exclusions in the prohibited area. If you check your charts, you can see that there are exclusions, so you can navigate around the prohibited area. But yes, Ely has a customs dock and a seaplane fuel available here. It's right next door to the seaplane base.
Huh. But someone coming in from the south, come and visit your facility right here and land.
We'd love to have them visit. We'd prefer that they didn't use our dock just for logistical reasons. We have a customs and service dock right next door, and they can very welcome to come into that and then come over and take a tour.
Very good. Tell me about your winter operations.
Well, come mid-November we start icing up here. The shallow lakes will go first, obviously. This bay is fairly shallow and we'll start getting ice. We'll pull a couple of our airplanes out of here and swap them over to wheels and skis and get them out of here. The third one we typically leave right here during ice up to do major maintenance on it. But it takes about a month before our ice will make up to the 8 inches that we require with a beaver to operate off from.
8 inches?
Yeah.
Wow.
But that's nothing. We'll get 3 feet of ice here in the winter. So yeah, once you get much past, I'll say the first of the year,
Yeah.
we usually have plenty of ice. You'll want to look, a good indicator around this area is if there's a pickup truck sitting out there, it's probably okay.
Probably so. You do a lot of search and rescue, you said, in the wintertime. What other types of operations in the winter?
In the wintertime, we operate more for other agencies. We do a weekly trip out to Isle Royale National Park, resupplying those people, change of crew and food. We'll do moose surveys up on Voyageurs National Park, some on our own area as well. We do a lot of work for Fish and Wildlife with radio collared animals. We have a big radio collared program here on wolves. But we also do lynx, moose, and deer. Last winter, one of our airplanes was working up at Voyageurs while they were radio collaring moose. They were capturing with helicopter and net gun, and the beaver was flying cover to find the moose initially and to guide the helicopter.
Ely does have a regular ground land airport, correct?
Yes, yes, about 8 miles south of here.
So if you're on the amphib, you could come and visit the area.
Sure.
There's
Yeah,
plenty
if
to
you come
do
here, put your gear up.
Oh, okay, for gear up.
We did have a 185 amphib that landed gear down in the water. It was kind of embarrassing.
Did it flip over?
Oh yeah.
All right.
The guy got out okay, and we ended up righting the airplane with a firefighting helicopter just to keep, just to contain the fuel and oil spill. But then he had to actually do the salvage himself after that. Yeah. We've had some wet summers where we didn't have high fire activity, and we have outsourced the airplanes in the past. We've done recreational cabins for the Tongass National Forest up in southeast Alaska. I've made a few trips to the Navy Test Pilot Base at Pax River, Maryland.
To teach them to fly seaplanes.
To give the Navy test pilot candidates a chance to fly a float plane.
Make a real pilot out of them.
Yeah, well, it gives them a little more insight. The P3 drivers were really excited about it, and they actually got to touch the water where they practiced ditchings all the time, but never actually got a chance to touch the water and maneuver. But yeah, it's an interesting little side trip, little detail that we have. It just helps appreciate the place a little better, in that we have a lot of variety in our flying.
And do you still do that on a regular basis?
Not since we had a massive blowdown up here. We lost 500,000 acres of trees, and since then we've had fairly high fire preparedness. It may not be a fire hazard. Well, it's a fire hazard, but there are times when we just need to be here. We can't be off in southeast Alaska.
Yeah, you talked about what you look for in a pilot, and just all around bush pilot skills, as you talked about what your background was. Mm-hmm. But you also were showing us around the hangar there. You expect them to also do some mechanical work. Do you have to be APs?
No, we don't have to have a license, but we have a full-time mechanic. I'm a part-time, I'm a mechanics helper. It's too small an outfit for everybody to be a specialist. So if we're down here doing major maintenance and need a hand, the mechanic will call on the pilots to help out. And we help out for the annuals and major things. Here are some of the Forest Service history here in Ely. Some of it is not of the Forest Service, it's local aviation history. Some of it's of us, the different aircraft and pilots that we've had. We've had a dozen different types of airplanes and a dozen different mechanics. We've had Nordine Norsemen, early Stinsons, 3 different Stinson 108s, Cessna 180s and 185s, and we've had a number of different beavers. We have 3 beavers now. And it just shows some of the operations and the people that we've had in the past here. There's been quite a rich history here. We started with contractors in 1929, bought our first airplane, the Stinson, in 1938.
Wow.
And that's the same airplane up here on the wall. These are some of the early aviators in the Ely area, Wally Holm and Hoot Houdala, with Curtis Robin. Early days in aviation here in Ely.
Well, it's a great picture of the Northern Lights there. My gosh.
Yeah, that was taken over the Cavity Lake fire. It was a huge fire we had on the east end of our forest here a few years back, and the Northern Lights at night.
Looks like the fire's going right up into the sky,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
yeah, and it was a blazing fire. There were 200-foot flame lengths at one point there.
Mm.
Some of the early uses of aircraft in this area, the days before snowmobiles, they used airplanes on skis for trap lines and to shoot wolves from the air. This is a picture of a local conservation officer that used to fly a Cub in this area. Aviation was has always been a way of getting around in this country long before snowmobiles. This is a picture of our hangar that was built back in '41 with our Nordine Norseman, which didn't quite fit in the hangar. The hangar has been improved and enlarged over the years, and now we have nice offices here on the side. This is a picture of a prescribed burn that we did trying to alleviate some of the blowdown fire hazard that we have up in the boundary waters. We use the airplane on large fires like this as an air attack platform. The holding boss or the firing boss will orbit the airplane, orbit the fire in the airplane. And the advantage of the float plane is that when we get tired of going in circles, we can just stop and take a break. It's a shot of us bringing in our typical fire squads, a 3-man squad with gear, chainsaws, pumps, overnight gear, and a canoe strapped on the side to initial attack small fires. This is an early picture. Note the 2-bladed prop and the porthole rear window on the Beaver. This was, we only had 1 landing light. This is probably back in the early 90s. We used to have a fun mission, paracargo. We used to load 35-gallon barrels with up to 120 pounds of gear and put a parachute in the top. The barrels had electric bomb racks hooked to them that were bungee cord loaded. We could fly over a target, pull the switch, the drum would roll off like a depth charge, and a parachute would pop out sometimes. It was too much of a snag hazard. We ended up having to discontinue the mission. We were afraid one of the barrels might get tied up on the airplane. The Ely area has such an aviation background here. The high school even taught pilot and mechanic courses and owned their own airplane in the high school system here in Ely because of all the aircraft use. This was a huge seaplane base at one point.
Wayne, what is your function here at the U.S. Forest Service Seaplane Base?
One of the pilots, you know, same as Dean. There's 4 of us here, and the main job is flying the airplane and associated administrative duties with directly and indirectly keeping the airplanes running. But our job, we do firefighting is our main reason for being here, reason for the airplane. So, which might be missions such as detection is common. We'll fly detection every day when fire danger, and we have the 125-gallon water tanks for initial attacks, so we can drop water on fires. Hauling fire crews is probably one of the more important duties we have when there is a fire in the wilderness. To get crews in, we're the way to get them in.
For those people who don't know, when is the fire season? Worst time?
Pretty much when the snow is melted and it dries out. You know, could be through even into October. We, you know, even in there can be fires, you know, in November. But the heavy fire season, we generally typically have a little spring fire season with the grass fire, cured grass. Burns real fast, and a lot of people are mostly human caused fires. A lot of people burn in leaf piles or what have you, and gets away from them, or cigarette butt in the ditch or whatever, you know, whatever. But and then later in the summer, mid-July or so, when things start curing out and drying out, then we'll have our late summer fire season, which usually a little more intense, and there's more chance for lightning caused fires. So It kind of broadens the area where we find them typically, and more people in the woods. And
How many years have you been flying?
well, I've been with the Forest Service for 21 years now.
Always in Ely?
Yeah, right here. And prior to that, I started flying, I guess, 1974. So whatever that makes, 36 years.
What kind of airplanes have you been in?
Well, here at the Forest Service, we've had Beavers, and I have gone out and I had an opportunity to fly in the Forest Service DC-3 once as a co-pilot when they were desperate for
Wait a minute.
some help.
Forest Service had a DC-3? Not on floats, I assume.
No.
Where was the plane based at?
This one was in out of Ogden. It was
That's New York?
Ogden, Utah.
Ogden, Utah,
That's our
okay.
region for it.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got two in the Forest Service. I mean, we don't typically do that here. You know, this was years ago, and it was a little easier, and they needed some help, and I had some DC-3 time, turbine DC-3 time, so they let me come out and fly with them for a couple of weeks.
I hope you've enjoyed your tour of the only U.S. Forest Service seaplane base located in Ely, Minnesota.